I'm here with a review from our first bass lesson. So the first thing we did was set the bass at the proper height, and it's different for everybody. But if I can just bring this camera down to show you, what we're looking for is when you're standing with your bass, your fingers should be about where this bridge is. So adjust the end pin so that it's about that height. That way, when you start to play and our bow is going to be here in the sweet spot, you'll have your arm in the right position and it'll have a little bit of a bend to it. So that's going to be a good indicator that you have it at the correct height. Okay. This week we're not using the bow, but we started practicing using pizzicato. So your left hand's going to go up here just to kind of stabilize the bass, and your right hand you're going to make an L. And I'm doing this with my thumb against the fingerboard, but I'm going down here, so it's hard to see on the video. But we're going to start all the way over here with our highest string, and that is called G. The next string down is D, A, and E. So your strings are actually in the opposite order of violin strings. You have the same string names, but your low to high is in a different order. So again, that is G, D, A, and E. And if you went the other way, it would sound like this: E, A, D, and G. You really have to, pull kind of hard to get that sound out. Bass strings, if you don't go very hard, you'll just get a very faint sound like that. You're really trying to use the pad, this part of your finger, to pull against the string, to pull sideways, and that's where you're going to get a good tone. So let's go ahead and look at our lesson book material. All right, so here we are looking at page 4 in the lesson book. Our homework was number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if we take a look starting here with number 1, the D and A march, we'll see that there's only 2 different notes that happen on this line. So we have this note right here. It's on the 1, 2, 3, the third line. That note is D. If you remember from our open strings, D isn't the skinniest, the highest string up here, but it's the next one over. And that's the note D. Okay, the music tells us to play 4 Ds, and then we go down to this lower note. This note in the first space is called A. Since it's lower, we're going to go over to another string here that's lower. That's our A string. So our 2 strings we're working with here are in the middle, D and A. There's one other symbol in this line of music right here. That's called a rest, and in music, rest means do not play. So when you get there, we're not going to play any notes. And so before we play it, we are going to say it, which means we're going to go through, read the note names, and make sure we know what we need to play so that when we do start playing, we're ready to go. So here we go with number 1. Let's go through and say the note names. D, 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 A, 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 D, D, A, A, D, 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 rest. A, 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 D, 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 A, 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 D, 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 rest. Awesome. All right, so now let's get ready to play. We're going to make our L, put it up against the fingerboard. Okay, really make sure we're gripping that string. And here we go. I'm going to play number 1, the D and A march. D, 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 A, D, D, A, D, 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 rest. A, D, 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 A, D, D, rest. Excellent, nice job. Okay, so moving down to number 2, you can see it uses all of the same notes. They're just in a different order. So right now, pause the video and go through and say the note names, and when you come back, we'll play it together. All right, so here we go. Starting on the D string again. Okay, lots of rest in this one, so be careful that you don't play when you're not supposed to be playing. Here we go with number 2. D, D, rest, rest, A, rest, rest, A, D, 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 rest, A, rest, rest, D, D, rest, rest, D, D, A, D, 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 rest. Excellent, nice work. I'm going to leave number 3 and 4 for you to do on your own, but the one thing that is new in number 4 right here, is this whole rest. A whole rest means that you don't play for 4 whole beats. So when you count your rest, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you play. So take some time this week, practice through all 4 of these. Try to get maybe 4 times playing through them this week, and then we'll be ready to go to something new next time. So thanks for watching, and have